Welcome to the Channel Surfers. I'm John McCabe, and I'm joined as always by my co-host and good friend, Jeff Lennon. How you doing, Jeff?
Hey, John, I'm doing great, man. As always,
Good.
hopefully. I always say that, as always and hopefully, but no, I kind of am. You know what? Blue skies, no rain. We both should be golfing right now. So
Yep.
I got that going.
It's almost fall here in the South, which is the greatest season if you live in the South because it's never cold. It's just brisk and it's golf weather every day, and it's the best. So Jeff, we did a podcast a while ago, but way back, going back a couple months, talking about, the job market, and we gave some advice on, how to kind of wade through, applying for jobs and tricks and tips that we had utilized ourselves. And I want to revisit that, but we want to do it in two parts. Today, we're going to talk about just kind of the general overview of the job market today for channel executives and what we're seeing. And then part two, we're going to have an interview with a gentleman by the name of Rick Sears, who is a professional resume creator and has done wonders for my resume and for a lot of people that I recommended him to. But he has a lot of really good advice and good tips to build a resume and a LinkedIn profile, right? So we want to talk today first and kind of set up that call for Rick, or that show with Rick, to talk about the existing job market. And this is something that, I can't avoid it on a daily basis. When you look at LinkedIn, how many people have that green circle around their photo open to work? How many people are posting that they just got let go, or they're just newly out in the market because, companies are laying people off? Let's be real. Back in 2020, there were a lot of people being hired. The whole COVID, world, people were working from home.
But the post-COVID, right? It was that
post-COVID, yeah.
COVID.
Excuse me. Companies were seeing that everybody was very productive working from home, so they started to plan and build out sales teams and build out their company employee size. But then, the elections happened and people were really hesitant to do anything. And now we have other world, issues that are going on. Tariffs here in the US, war in Europe and the Middle East, and political assassinations. But I'm sure companies are just very hesitant to do a lot and spend money. And from two sales guys, I'm seeing that sales are stalling out because companies are hesitant to do anything. But then I also see that companies are getting rid of employees to make themselves look a little lighter. Maybe they're trying to get acquired, get skinny. My son, he accepted a job with a company, and the day before to start, they sent him a note saying, "Hey, your job has been rescinded," and that's the end of it. And we came to find out that the company got acquired, and they were trying to shed payroll just to make themselves look skinny. Right? So that really, from a channel executive standpoint, I see that right now. I see that executive positions are being posted, but are you getting calls for those postings if you're applying? Are those jobs real? I think a lot of times companies are posting jobs to trap resumes, right? A great topic for the show that we do with Rick. Is your resume set up to go through these AI software filters that push you through or block you out? So that's really what I want to talk about today. And I want to get your take on what you feel or what you see, because you and I, we talk a lot, and we talk about this frequently.
Well, it's definitely come up a lot, right? And to your point, it's weirdly relevant or prevalent, I should say, because it's been evolving and shifting. That's the part that's been really interesting to me. And part of it is, and to your point, we do talk about it because there's a bunch of people that I've worked with and have coached. This year alone, probably 11, 12 different people, but, just trying to point them in the right direction. And I've actually pointed people to Rick, and just to do credit where credit's due. I mean, I can't wait to have him on because super great guy, right? I'll just kind of do a preview promo. I kind of call him he's more like a career consultant in the sense that he's looking at how you present yourself holistically. And it's all those facets, right? It's how you're presenting yourself on LinkedIn. What does your resume look like? Making sure that if you're doing a cover letter that is specific and you're hitting the main points. Get rid of all the BS stuff that you have, right?
Yeah.
Be very on point and factual. And I think you nailed it. A couple of things that I've seen, and I'll just kind of run with this. The rise of AI, right? I just joked about it earlier. AI is my rabbit hole. So there's so many aspects. It's so pervasive, excuse me. Well, that was a good word. Yeah. It's becoming more and more pervasive in just life, but it's happening at such a weird rate. But in the employment place or the employment sector, and this is where I think, something, even when I talk to Rick, understanding how to put together a resume that is best set up for these AI scanning engines. Yeah. And even, it's like back in our day, I'll date myself, right? The OCR where they would scan it, but resumes aren't even getting looked at if they're not hitting a certain level of criteria. And, I think there's other aspects, which, I'll probably get, blacklisted for, but I saw this guy's post on, Instagram, and I think ageism is a real thing.
For sure. Yep.
But even without that, the rise of AI and the scanning of resumes, the fact that, whether or not they're Casper roles, I call them Casper because it's like the friendly ghost. It's kind of like, hey, we have a role, but it's not real. Kind of.
Yeah.
But I do see this interesting shift, and I get it. People want certain people, but they also they expect them to have experience. Well, then you got to go hire people with experience. It's like, there was a joke, LinkedIn thing going around where somebody had posted, entry level position. And then the fourth bullet, it said 3 to 5 years of experience. That's not entry level, No. But I'll just throw this out there because I think this is actually pertinent to both you and I. What I'm also seeing, and I was doing a little bit of research, right? Because I wanted to make sure I had, I'll say, some facts or data. But just looking through some different stuff on LinkedIn and ExecuNet, I think they had a report. There's a huge decline in the publicly posted executive level roles for both sales and channel. I mean, it's down. But This is what's even weirder. The interim and fractional roles have grown somewhere between 25 and 30% over the last 2 years.
Yeah. We're prime examples of that. And look, let me add one more stat to that.
Yeah.
I saw a jobs report for the past 12 months, and there were 911,000 less jobs created over the past 12 months, which is pretty frightening because you think about it, all these people are let go. They're in the looking mode. They're trying to find a job. And yet no new jobs are being created. And I think that's because of this fear of doing something when they don't know what the future holds, right? And yes, there's an increase in that fractional contract-based role like you and I have, because I think we got tired of that being that disposable executive when times are tough, getting thrown out to the curb, and the company doesn't give a crap because they don't want to mess with sales. They want to keep that steady. Channel is a paper cup that's disposable. And I just got fed up with that. I wanted to control my own destiny. You inspired me to do that with your role that you created for yourself. And now the two of us have, the two of us are doing our own thing and making money, and it's a much more pleasurable and enjoyable situation. So for anyone who's listening out there, if you're frustrated, create your own fractional business, but you got to hunt and find the right clients. And sometimes maybe multiple clients is a lot for a single person, but if you could do it and make money, great.
Well, John, and there's also the ability, it's a way to start to empower yourself and leverage the knowledge and skills that you have. That's number one. Number two, you could also look to leverage that into a work for hire program, right? Because I think the challenge is getting to buy in on certain roles, right? They know they need the help, they know they want it, so it's an easy sell to get somebody to come in and do it as a fractional leader, whether it's fractional. And again, when we were talking about it, right, it's whether it's fractional channel, fractional sales, fractional marketing. That's how people are like, they're getting over the hump so they can bring somebody in as a fractional role. But it's also potentially interim, right? Like they're only doing it for a short time, so it could be considered either or, but it could be kind of a fractional to hire role where it's like, hey, if we get in and we can do X, Y, and Z, eventually you like move into the role. Now I know for a lot of people they're risk averse.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to go down that path, and that's fine, right? So when you start thinking like, how do you get over that challenge? And I go back to the other two episodes, right? We threw out a lot of good advice. In fact, there's potentially a story that might not be this year, but I definitely want to bring on one or two people that took some advice from those original podcasts, and they're in interesting roles now. And I verbally, I met with one of them in person, the other I spoke on the phone, and it's so I want to make sure that we put good information, right, to help people kind of get through that. So,
and look, I think you don't have to name names, but I think it's important to tell that story because you and I were just talking about that. I think it's amazing that we were able to just give our tips and tricks and advice and
I know,
be
right?
able to, help somebody secure a job.
I
And
know. John, people look at me in amazement. They're like, wait a minute, that came from you? Ah, Jesus.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, look, I poke fun of myself, but no, I mean, it is a good story. And like I said, there's at least, there's a couple. I mean, the one that jumped out was, I had met somebody at an event, and during an opportunity of networking and sharing, found out that, her role had been eliminated, and it was a very ugly way that it happened. Through the process, I had shared that we just started a podcast, and recently, within the last, probably the last month, maybe 5 weeks, I was at another event in New York and ran into this person. Wasn't expecting to see the person there, but ran into the person, and here they are. They're in a new role, new company, at a director of alliances role, and I was like, holy, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
And she was very nice, and like I said, I want to try to have her on so we could tell the full story, but at the high end, it was like, she appreciated the opportunity. We had put some stuff out there. She had listened to the podcast, took some of the tips, took some of the things that we were saying about the approach and the preparation. And, here she is, now she's got a great job, and, all the credit goes to her. I mean, it was just information and advice, but all the credit goes to her for taking that and executing on it. And I have another story where, same thing. Somebody, I was just sharing information, and I'm, I don't want to put this in here, but it's like, if I know you and I know you're trying to do something, I mean, I'll set up a Google Drive, and I'll drop everything that I have, and you can take whatever it is. I mean, you can go do it on chat, knock yourself out. You can take everything I give you and put it through chat. I don't really care. But the point is, if there's something I have that can help somebody else get through the next step, or get up, get over a hump, I feel obligated to do that. I'm trying to, So anyway,
well, the whole, reason why we're doing this podcast is to help people. And when we hear like real world stories of people listening and actually changing their lives because they took our advice, and we're just two schlubs, right? But we have world, experience. We've been there. We've seen it. We've experienced it, right? And we could help them get through it without too much turmoil, right? Which really, it makes, warms my heart to know that somebody took our advice and helped themselves get better.
Yep.
Let's talk about a little bit about like some of the challenges, excuse me, in a channel executive marketplace. And I'm going to quote two things. Slow C-level turnover, where executives are staying longer and maybe not making decisions fast on roles like channel executives, and then head of whatever, VP of whatever, channel partnerships, ecosystem alliances, they're remaining vacant for longer times to maybe give these sales organizations a better feel for how important channel is to them. So I think that's something I've seen in people I know and their experiences and looking at LinkedIn, I think a lot of spots are staying open. Like you said, the Casper roles, maybe those Casper roles are because they just don't know what to do. They don't have the budget. They don't know if they should make the move. This paralysis by analysis because of what the economy and what the world is doing. Instead of like diving in and like saying, hey, partnerships are important. Alliances are
Yeah.
important. They help grow business. And if you don't get it, and goes back to a show we had way back when, are you in or out? Do you believe or you don't believe? And I think that's what's pervasive now in this marketplace.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
No, I 100% agree. As I think about this, the challenge is, well, first of all, I think just the state of where things are, and again, I always like to use the term the post-COVID world, but I think a lot of businesses are significantly risk averse.
Oh
Okay,
God, yes.
so understanding that they're risk averse, right? They're slower to make the turn. They're slower to make it, with the churn. And I also don't. I think that at and again, I would probably be smacked by somebody, but I don't think a majority of companies truly understand, and it's changing. It's changing. I've seen the statistics through partnership leaders about the chief partner officer, the CPO. That position has been growing and rising. So more and more companies are starting to realize, like, and it goes back to Nearbound, like, hey, the way people buy is what really is driving how companies need to configure themselves, right? You're not just going to have a widget that you go sell, but I think between the risk aversion and the not understanding, I'll call it a slow burn, because a channel, right, having a partner ecosystem, which going back to Jay's thing, right, that is one of the top 3 drivers that's going to move the market over the next 5 years. It is the partner ecosystem. I mean, we're talking $1 trillion industry that's going to be happening because of AI, but it's going to be basically the underpinnings are the partner ecosystem, because you need
and
to have
who's going to run it and who's going to manage it and strategically think about it. Not the CRO. I mean, they want somebody that does that. They've got other things they got to deal with. You need somebody in that position to do that and build that. It's not an easy thing, and it can't be a one person thing. It's got to be you got to have a team around that, right?
And that's the point, right? So getting the higher level, the whether it's owned by a PE firm or a VC, like making sure they even understand, like, hey, this is where we're trying to go, and this is what it's going to look like, and here is the 2 to 3 year plan to get there. The problem with that is everybody wants results now. I need to see results. I got a sales rep. I'm going to give him a quota. He should have X amount in his pipeline by this. That was great in 2018, 2017, maybe even as late as 2019. But I just think the market has shifted the way people buy. I think AI has also changed the way people buy. Back in the day, and I may have said this before, and I'll say it again, before you will ever go buy something, just as a consumer, you buy stuff, I buy stuff. We research it. We research it. And that has evolved. Now, when somebody researches it, they're going into Gemini, Grok, OpenAI, chat, and they're getting their data put together, right? And I want to get back to the hiring thing, but how this is a fundamental thing. It's how people are buying. They're doing all this research before you even talk, and even after you talk to them, they're doing their own comparison. Why? Because they can do it. It's simple. It's easy. It's fast. Whether or not that data is 100% correct coming out of AI, not really going to matter. So you better hope to God that you're pumping your stuff out there so that it's in that AI LLM, so that you're getting a good read back. But coming back to it, I think that I think it's just a little bit more of a slower turn. I also think from an executive level, John, that and again, I'm just quoting a number that I saw, but I'm going to say somewhere between 80-85% of the executive level hires are being sourced through either referrals or retained search, organizations. So just trying to go get something through LinkedIn, probably not going to happen. No. I'm just saying.
No, and I think you're right. I mean, especially for guys like us, the MOG constituency. I find applying through LinkedIn is not very useful. I don't really get responses. I've had more success with what you said, referral, or working with great recruiters. But the recruiters that I've talked to, there really aren't a lot of positions they're looking at from a channel perspective. They're all sales in cybersecurity where we roam, it's like it's sales, and these recruiters just like, well, if I have something, I'll call you. But then I've had recruiters call me and say, this company's interested. You have the great profile. They want you to build out, a rebuild. And then a week or two goes by, and I'm like, hey, what's going on with that position? Like, they decided to hold.
Yep.
Why are they holding? Because they're not committed. They're not in. They don't believe. They're worried about everything that's going on around them. And instead of diving in, it's an investment. Any investment, there's a risk. If you buy a stock, it can tank or it could take off, right?
Absolutely.
But you got to know going in, it's a risk. And you take the risk knowing that there's reward at the end of the tunnel if you put your money and time and effort, energy and knowledge into it. If you don't, it could fail, right? If you just, it's like anything.
Well, here's again, just adding to that spin. I mean, you got to leverage your network, right? Like you just said, you've got to be creative. Like the biggest question is, how do you stand out? How do you plan on standing out? So the talent market, I think the pool has shrunk to a degree. So the talent market is very fierce, right? The number of candidates, I saw something in one of the things that I was reading, articles on LinkedIn called the hidden market. And, it's kind of, it's just funny. Like I keep seeing these weird kind of terms, right? But you take that and you take the hidden market thing, and then you look at, the fierce amount of talent with the candidates. Your referral is the diamond. That's the thing. That's the point that's going to get you through those first things. And by the way, I'm just telling you from my own personal experience. I had a situation, and again, could have just been me. I think on my call, maybe I was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and they were like, "Oh, this guy's too laid back. Not going to get Jeff's a risk. Not going to do it." But even with a referral, it didn't seem like it went anywhere, and I was just like, you know what? Best thing that ever happened. I say it all the time. Sometimes the no is just a redirection to something better. And I know that sounds, I'll use the word corny and date myself, but it sounds a little blasé, and people are like, oh, come on. Sometimes that no or that redirection actually pushes you into something better. And I truly, truly believe that. But one of the, getting back to, looking at the market and things that Rick does, you've got to figure a way to stand out. And the best way to help you stand out is, even with the referral, is making sure that your resume, all those things are tweaked, not only to meet the expectations of the role, but to get through this AI bullshit, because stuff is getting flagged or pushed, and it may not even be getting into a cycle.
Yeah.
Hence the referral, which should hopefully get you over that hurdle.
Yeah.
But I see that as kind of a big challenge. And then I also see, John, especially within the channel, there's this, and I'm going to steal from Jay McBain. It was the hyper localization and hyper personalization that are taking place in the market.
Yep.
And what's happening, especially in channel leaders have to be like multifaceted. You've got to be able to understand the direct, the indirect, the marketplaces, the alliances, the ISVs, all these hyperscalers. Like, it's this. Now, people say, well, I'm not going for this role up here. I'm just going for this role. That's not my point. My point is, you need to understand the landscape, and you need to understand the company that you have. Like, it may only be selling in one of these right now, but as it grows, it's going to hit some of these other pockets. Understanding all those things, the direct, the indirect, the marketplaces, the alliances, the ISVs, the hyperscalers, like, especially marketplaces. I think marketplaces have really come out and have come along, but having those things in your bag, I think are pretty important. And it comes back to, something else. I was just one of the guys I was kind of helping, coaching, whatever. I sent him an email with like 4 or 5 links, and I'm like, you need to go look at this stuff. You can pick and choose, because it's going to potentially push you in some different directions, but get an understanding of these hyperscalers, get an understanding of these environments, so that when you do have a conversation, but you also know, like, that's not where I'm looking to go. I want to go, like, if you have an idea, if not, but at least you have the knowledge. Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And, just if you're out there and you're channel executive and you may have just landed a role, or you're in a role and maybe you're feeling a little, leery of what's happening, I would suggest, everything you do is really an ability to demonstrate your measurable performance, what your worth is to the organization. So I make sure you're documenting everything that you do. Having a partner portal is a great way to draw that information out because it's tied into sales, Salesforce or CRM, and you can kind of pull that information like, hey, we increased deal registrations by 233% over the past 6 months. Ooh, okay, but that's great, right? But I would suggest you keep yourself keep a rolling diary or documentation of your success and what you've done, because unfortunately it might come down to it. We're like, well, what have you done for us lately? Because a lot of executives do ask, hey, where's the deals? You're running the channel. Where are those deals coming? Where's the revenue? Or the reps are like, when am I getting my deal? But if you have it at the fingertips, it makes you a little more, I don't want to say easier to keep your position, but it helps you to better position yourself against, bad from happening, right? Knowledge is power. Having that data. I mean, you're a big data guy. Having data in front of you to just rip off is powerful, because then they can't say, oh, okay, well, you are doing something, right?
Yeah.
I can talk from experience. I was at a company and they let me go and they're like, well, we don't really see any progress. And I'm like, well, hold on a second. And I ripped out everything that I've been keeping track of. I'm like, well, here's deal registrations, partner activity, enablement. And it's still, there was something there. They didn't want, me, but
Well, they're looking at revenue, John. Nine times out of 10,
yeah.
they're trying to. And again, not to discount what you're saying, but a lot of times it comes just down to revenue, right? So to your point, the KPIs, that's all important, but at the end of the day, there's one important KPI, and it's what is the impact of revenue, direct or indirect, and how did you actually impact that? And that's, it sucks because especially if you don't have good metrics or good ways of executing on that. But just to kind of jump back to the other side of the fence, so to speak, if you're trying to get in, and I'm stealing this from somebody, and I'll probably get beat up on the internet for it, but one of the things that I heard is, and it's kind of an I'm stealing it from a sales approach that I've used, which is the hypothetical. So if you're talking to somebody, it's like, well, look, hypothetically speaking, let's just say I had the job and it's 6 months, I'm 6 months in. Where am I, and where do I need to be to show that I've been successful here in my first 6 months? What does that look like?
Yeah.
And get them to tell you what that looks like, because if they're truly being honest, you're going to start to understand what it is that they're looking like. And if they don't, I mean, that's fine. But the whole point is you're trying to get an understanding of what are the success metrics. And if it's 6 months in, what does it look like to be successful? They're going to, whatever they throw out there, then you'll start to understand that.
And look, something you gave me years ago was your 60, 90, 30, 60, 90 day plan, which if anyone's interested, reach out to Jeff to get a copy of this. It's amazing. You really go deep into building, measuring, showing results within those, first 90 days, and you outline it, right? And you're very pinpoint about it. And I've utilized that. I've applied it in my roles that I've taken over, and it's useful, right? But it's like anything, you've got to do the job that you're being, hired for and tasked with, and don't show up and throw up with a 30, 60, 90 day plan and not apply it or do anything with it. That's a surefire way to get
be prepared to get your hands dirty. That 30, 60, 90 day plan helped me make club at 2 major companies in my first year, just by doing those things in the first 30, 60, 90 days, because I appreciate you bringing that up, but I realize now what it was doing, John. So, but you're right. You got to get in and do the work. Okay. And that 30, 60, 90, what it did was it level set shit. It level set the expectation that I was going to have for success and for the teams that I was supporting, as well as the partners, because that's the lost art. The lost art is you're not just working with you're working with the team, your sales teams, and the partner sales teams, and the technical teams, and the alliance teams. So I come back to this term that may have been, I'm trying to think who used, it might have been Nick, digital fluency. Make sure that you have digital fluency about what's going on. It's no longer just nice to have. You need to have it, especially if you're looking to, really drive and command the role that you're in. So
yeah, for sure. All right, so we're about at time. I think a couple of takeaways. Like, look, the job market is really horrible right now. I think if you could stick it out and keep, hoofing it on the pavement and trying to find a job, I suggest go find a good recruiter. Tap your network so you can get a reliable and trustworthy referral into a position. Outside of that, I think you just have to, decide is corporate, hourly or salaried, paychecks the way you want to go, or do you want to start your own business and make something of yourself and write your own ticket, right? The other thing is, I think you can't deny AI and technology have maybe cut into a little bit of your world, a little, to an extent, but it's not eliminating positions. I think the cost of AI that companies are investing in might be eliminating positions because it's such an expensive
streamlining.
venture. Yeah. So, just keep that in mind. I think also be prepared, know your job, keep track of what you do, keep track of your wins, and make sure you promote yourself and don't ever be afraid to speak up for yourself, because I think, C-level executives, they're all, they're pretty tough guys and they're in a tough position and they don't want somebody who's meek, right? So be prepared, be tough, stand up for yourself. And then I think lastly, I think these Casper jobs, it's just be leery of it. That's why I say go to a recruiter. They might have a better in. Rick Sears has a great take on those. And when we talk to him, we'll bring that up because he knows why they do it and what the purpose of it is.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
he really actually helps you tweak your resume to specifics of a job that you're looking for. And that helps get you through those systems. It helps you get interviews. It helped me, for when I was out of work last year. But I think Rick has a really good take on those Casper roles.
Damn. So I usually do my 3, and I just made a note because you said something, and I'm like, so it's going to be 4. But I'm going to almost echo what you said, and it's, first of all, if you're in the market or you're looking or you're thinking about looking, number one, you got to build your brand, whether it's your technical brand, your executive brand, your professional brand. If you want to become an executive, start working on building out that brand. Work on the content, work on your speaking skills, work on your thought leadership, figure out what you're going to post, make sure that, and I'll just throw this out there. Don't just throw shit into chat and then post it like you just wrote it.
Yeah,
you know what people are doing? I'm going to pause, so I'll come back and rephrase this, but people are taking stuff that you post. I know because somebody reached out to me one time and they're like, "Did you see XYZ?" And I go, "Yeah, I saw it." He goes, "I took it, put it into chat and said, was this created by an AI?" And it said, yes.
No.
And I was like, holy shit.
That's
so
crazy.
First of all, try to make it your own is my thought, is my recommendation. But build your brand, executive technical channel, whatever it is, through speaking, content, all that. Second is you got to stay sharp. Stay sharp with your data. You got to stay sharp with your marketplace knowledge, and you got to make sure that you're leaning in on some form of AI and not just using chat, or chat as we like to call it. Next is, and John, you've been helpful and very influential for me, is expanding my network and expanding it with meaningful peer relationships, not just connections, but peer relationships. And I will go out and sell anything to anybody and talk to anybody. But what I was not good, or not, what I didn't always do, was reach out to other peers and make those, peer relationships, not just connections, and have those meaningful conversations, because I think that's important. And last, I think you hit it, which is consider the fractional project-based roles if you want to stay in motion. It's not forever. You try, you don't like it, that's fine. But you know what? You never know. And it's something that, will put you in potentially a better position. So
I hired one of the best channel managers I've ever hired. He owned a small services company, and he's like, I had to get out of it. It was too much of a headache. I needed to go back into the, the world where I was like an individual contributor and I can, do that. And like, I appreciate that. And, he ended up being one of the best channel guys I've ever hired or worked with. And if you're thinking about going into your own business, try it. Like Jeff said, try it. If it doesn't work out, you can always go back into the work world. It's not like you can't,
It's really going to test you. It's really
Yeah.
going to test what you think you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll just say this, man, because I made the note. I was like, so after I wanted to go through those 3 bullets, which then became 4, my idea was, and I know you love playbooks, but putting together a new playbook for getting back in the game or
Sure.
or helping yourself. I mean, we'll play around with the name, but I really think that there's enough from the other 2 conversations we had and this and what we're going to do with Rick that we could maybe put together a little playbook that just says, hey, look, it's not rocket science, but here's the top 5, 7, 8 things that you should probably be doing on a continual basis, because your brand is not just today. It's the foundational things and the things that you have done over your career. But what have you done to kind of expand on that, right? And not just point and say, hey, I worked at XYZ for X amount of time. That's
Well, Rick will tell you your LinkedIn profile is very important and how to tweak it. And he also has a great video that he posts about tweaking your LinkedIn profile, because that really works. People look at your LinkedIn profile as much as they look at your resume, maybe even more at your LinkedIn profile. Keep it clean, keep it professional. Don't make it a Facebook post. Just keep your LinkedIn profile as close to what you're doing and professional as you possibly can. So
awesome.
All right. So with that, Jeff, thanks again for joining and hosting with me. We will have part 2 of this with an interview with Rick Sears in the coming weeks. And I think you'll really get a lot of that, and it'll be very interesting for those who are looking and trying to struggle with or are struggling with finding a job. With that, you could find the Channel Surfers on pretty much every podcasting service out there. You can reach us on our website, which is www.channelsurfers.com. We have a LinkedIn page that we post all of our podcast release every Tuesday. Jeff does an amazing job with that. If you want to email us for questions, or you want to get Jeff's 30, 60, 90-day plan, Jeff is jeff@channelsurfers.com. I am John at channelsurfers.com. Love to hear from you. Love to help you. Please reach out. So with that, Jeff, we'll talk again very soon.
Awesome, man. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Thanks.
Cheers.